Hi everyone, today on the Family Finance series, I want to talk about purchasing a car. Buying a car is one of the biggest and most important financial decisions you'll have to make. And getting into bad car buying habits early can compound the damage to your net worth, as car purchases tend to happen several times over your lifetime and many unnecessary times if you're doing it wrong. So let's jump into it. Today I want to talk about a few important topics. When should you buy a new car? Why leasing is expensive? Should you buy a new or a used car? Tips for finding and buying a car? Additional costs of ownership? And finally, do you need a bigger car? First things first, when should you buy a new car? Well, if you're me, it's when a drunk driver goes monster truck rally over your wife's poor Camry and turns it into a steel pancake. Yes, that's actually her car, and if you're interested in that story, drop a comment below and I'll make a separate video about it. But if your car wasn't totaled in a wreck or some other damage, you should just follow the rule that your car should be affordable and reliable. So consider replacing your car when the costs of maintaining it are getting higher than it's worth, or if you're living in constant fear that your car is going to leave you stranded on the side of the road. You shouldn't buy a new car because you just got a raise or you want to impress some girl or guy. Don't let lifestyle creep take over, and you don't want to be with someone who's motivated by your shiny toys. Until you're financially independent, you want to be in a comfortable, affordable, and reliable car, and if your current ride meets those criteria, there's really no reason to change it. Now let's say your car stops meeting those criteria and you need to replace it. If you're financially independent and you love having a new car with all the new tech installed in it, feel free to ignore my advice. But assuming you're still on the path to financial independence, I'm going to make a blanket statement here and say that you should never lease a car. Leasing a car is one of the most expensive ways to get your transportation. The gist of it is that leasing a car is basically like a long-term rental. In a lease, the dealer decides upfront what the value of the car should be when you bring it back. They subtract that from the current value, and the difference is the depreciation. When you lease a car, you're basically paying the cost of the depreciation of the car, which are highest during the first few years, over the length of that lease. If you happen to have more wear and tear or mileage than the dealer anticipated, he'll get back a lower value car. So if you drive more or wear the car out more than is defined for you in the lease terms, you'll get dinged those extra fees. You may also be forced to carry more expensive insurance, and on top of that, paying the depreciation is only going to let the dealer break even, so you're going to have to pay some interest as well. After all, they do have some capital tied up in that car, and you're going to have to pay the cost of it. So with a lease, you end up getting a new car every 3 years, but you have no equity in that car to trade in on your next purchase, which makes that purchase much more expensive. Now in the short term, the difference may not seem that large, which could cause you to justify getting a lease. However, just like compound interest, which we talked about before, leasing every time is going to compound the damage to your net worth over your lifetime. I'll leave a link in the description below to a video by Next Level Life, which goes into a highly detailed explanation about the math behind the cost of leasing a car for anybody who's interested in those numbers. I'll also leave a link to a Dave Ramsey video where he rants about the cost of leasing, or as he calls it, fleecing, and generally how that works. But in general, if you're still on the path to financial independence, I don't think leasing is the right choice for you. So generally speaking, don't lease a car. You want to purchase a car. So purchasing a car, do you want to purchase a new car or a used car? Now you can probably guess where I'm going with this, but I believe that if you're buying the right kind of used car, the only thing you're missing out on is that new car smell. And one of the reasons for that is something that I mentioned earlier talking about leasing, which is the depreciation. A car typically loses 50 to 70% of its value in the first 3 to 4 years. And the largest hit is in the first year, where it can typically lose about 20% of its value. So if you bought a new car for $30,000, after a year, it could be worth only $24,000, and it keeps plummeting fast in the first few years. That means you typically want to look for used cars that are 3 to 5 years old to get a good deal, and also have a car that relatively retains its value well. For example, let's look at what a 2020 Toyota Camry LE costs. According to Kelley Blue Book, the fair purchase price is about $24,000, and that tends to be the price of a new Camry each year. A 2015 Camry fair purchase price is closer to $13,000, meaning over 40% drop in value in the first 5 years for one of the models that best retains its value. in the first 5 years, you lose over $2,000 per year in value. So if you pick up a car between 3 and 5 years old, you'll be spared that loss. And guess what? 3-year-old cars are very easy to find because that's the typical length of a lease. So whoever's leasing that car is taking real good care of it, making sure not to get too much wear and tear on it or putting too many miles on it so they don't get dinged with extra fees on their lease. They're eating the depreciation costs for you, and then you can pick that car up while it's still in excellent condition without taking a hefty chunk of the value off for depreciation in the early years. And another advantage of buying a used car is that you're much more likely to be able to buy it cash rather than have to finance it with a new car. If you're financing a new car, not only are you paying a higher price, but you're also paying interest on that higher amount. If you buy a used car in cash, then it's yours free and clear. Remember that car accident I showed you? Well, there was a nice, relatively new car parked next to me that didn't get hit as bad, but also got totaled. In the police report for our accident, we saw that the other car had a lien on it. So while we got a hefty chunk of the new cost of our next car as an insurance settlement, if you have a car totaled and have a lien owner, guess who's getting paid? If you're underwater on that loan, meaning you owe more than the value of the car, you may end up still owing money on a car that's been totaled and gone and have zero money for your next purchase. That's a big risk. Another advantage of getting a used car is that you'll get more bang for your buck. When you're looking at different vehicle models, there's typically 3 different levels of trim that you can get. So just taking Toyota for example, they typically have LE, which is the base model, XLE above that, and Limited, which is the highest trim level. The price difference between these trim levels in new cars is much higher than it is in used cars. For example, you can see even for just a 2-year-old Camry with about 40,000 miles on it, the difference is $2,000 between the LE and XLE trim levels, while for a new 2020, it's about $4,000 difference. So if you've always wanted those nice leather seats or the sunroof or whatever other gadget floats your boat, it's closer within reach in a used car. Now let's math it up a little just to bring the point home. Let's say you buy a new car every 10 years. If you spend $10,000 extra buying brand new instead of used each time, you'll pay $40,000 more over 40 years in these purchases. But if you invested those $10,000 every 10 years in stocks and left it each time over those 40 years, those $40,000 would turn into, wait for it, $284,229. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm happy to take $250,000 over a few newer cars. And if you're married and you have cars for each of you, that could end up being over $500,000 over your lifetime. So you've seen the light and decided to buy a used car. Here's 5 tips for finding and buying a used car. Number 1, narrow down your choices. Focus on affordable and reliable brands. From conversations with my mechanic, the most affordable and reliable brands are Toyota, Honda, and Hyundai. Now, Hyundai hasn't built up as much of a reputation as the other 2 in the US, so the others can command a higher price point, but that doesn't mean you're getting lower quality with Hyundai. However, the reputation does have a large effect on retaining value. Toyotas tend to retain value very well. You can actually look on Kelley Blue Book at new cars and of different models from different manufacturers and see their estimated 5-year depreciation. Number 2, buy without a sense of urgency. Now in my case, that didn't happen because we had a rental car for just a few weeks, and in that time we had to settle the claim as well as find my wife a new car that she could get around with. But in general, you want to have time to plan in advance because you're much more likely to get a great deal in a private sale, and in a private sale you're going to need time to look around websites like Craigslist as well as drive around to meet people and see their cars. Number 3, try not to negotiate at the dealers, or alternatively go to a fixed price dealer. At a regular car dealer, there's going to be a lot of pressure applied on you by professionals to buy. And if they get you sitting in their building outside of your comfort zone and piling it on, it can really be hard to negotiate well. Find a car you like, even go for a test drive, and then go home. Email the dealer for the best price they can give you and indicate you are looking at alternatives with other dealers. This email blast technique works well with shopping new cars when you have enough money to do so, since you're comparing specific models with the same trims and add-ons. It's a bit harder to do with used cars, but the point is, don't commit to one specific car. Find a few you would be happy to drive for the right price. Remember, if you're buying a good, reliable car, you won't be sorry whether you end up with a Toyota Camry, a Honda Accord, or a Hyundai Elantra, just as examples of equivalent models. For no negotiation dealers, there are companies which will give you the final price straight up with no negotiations. If you're a really great negotiator and have the patience for it, you may be able to get a better deal at a regular dealer. But if you don't have the time or patience for it, you should consider one of these. I actually bought our new car at one of these called Echo Park Automotive. They limit their offering to cars between 1 to 8 years old and up to a certain amount of mileage and owners, so you know you're getting a decent car. The service was great, and we even got some free pizza while they detailed our car before we left, so I had a good experience. Just make sure you're still comparing prices online. If you have the time, you can put your eye on a certain vehicle and see how long it's been on their lot. Sometimes you can wait for a price drop. They will usually try a price drop on a car that isn't moving before they move it to auction. Number 4, if you do end up buying at a dealer, ask what type of warranty they offer. They should give you at least something like first 30 days or 1,000 miles, whichever comes first, for any repairs on things that pop up. And you shouldn't be charged extra for this warranty. Also check at the lot that the car has a spare tire, comes with floor mats, all the lights are working, no random lights on the dash pop up, windshield wipers work, and AC, both hot and cold, are good. Car accelerates and can do a good emergency brake. Check the treads on the tires. You don't want to get hit with an unexpected tire replacement bill right after buying a new car. If you can, get the car checked out by a mechanic you trust. Some places won't let you take the car to your own mechanic. You may want to avoid these places, or if you don't have that much selection, offer to pay your mechanic to come look at the car with you at the lot. Number 5, buying a new-to-you car may include some changes in monthly expenses that you may not initially think about. Getting a newer or bigger car can often come with an increased monthly insurance payment. If you have your eye on a specific car, call your insurance company in advance and give them the VIN number from the website. They should be able to quote you so you have an idea whether this car is going to cost you too much to insure. Another thing is fuel consumption. If you have a car that does on average 35 miles per gallon and you buy a new one that only gets 30, that's about a 14% decrease. Assuming you drive the average 15,000 miles a year, with the first car that would be 428.6 gallons, and with the second 500 gallons, which say at $2 a gallon would end up being an additional $143 a year, and at over 10 years close to $1,500. If you took that $143 a year and invested the prorated amount monthly, about $12, you would have at the end of 10 years about $2,000. If your car insurance is also only about $13, just to make it a total round $25 per month, that will come out to close to $4,000 over the lifetime of the car. Add a couple $1,000s of equity which you have in the car when you sell it, and you're now at a sizable chunk of the cost of your next car. Something I do want to stress is that I'm not advocating you buy a piece of junk here. You're buying a car that's going to last you 7 to 10 years, and with the savings, you're buying yourself a little bit of freedom and peace of mind. When you're a millionaire and you know you can retire comfortably, you can treat yourself to that brand new Tesla. Just to put it in perspective, the average age of cars on the road in most states is 10 to 12 years. How many cars do you see broken down on the road on the way to work every day? Not that many. Odds are it won't happen to you, and if it does, the long-term cost will still be worth it. I advocate moderation. Don't drive a beater, but also don't drive something brand new. Finally, let's talk about the size of the car. In my case, my wife was already pregnant when our Camry was totaled, and since we were planning to have several children and were buying a car for 10 plus years, we did end up getting a compact SUV. But if the accident hadn't happened, we would have kept that 12-year-old Camry for at least another 3 to 4 years. People often justify buying a bigger car by imagining very rare occasions where it would come in handy, like moving apartments or going on some crazy camping road trip. Buy a car for the day-to-day. Sure, if you live on a ranch and do a lot of big projects or go camping every weekend, maybe a larger car does make sense. But for the once in a few years you'll move or have some kind of project, it's cheaper to either rent or ask friends for help. If for 95% of the time you're just driving to work and the car is sitting in the parking lot, you don't need to get a larger car. To sum it up, number one, a car should be reliable and affordable. If your current ride isn't meeting those criteria, it may be time to switch. Number two, don't lease if you're still on the path to financial independence. Number three, buy a used car, not a new car. The effect on your long-term wealth can be remarkable. Number four, do your research. Go to online car buying sites, have options, and negotiate without a sense of urgency. Number five, take into account additional costs such as higher insurance costs, higher fuel consumption, or higher maintenance costs. And number six, similar to houses, don't buy more car than you need. So that's my 2 cents on buying a car for families working towards financial independence. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and drop me a comment below about your tips for car buying from your experience. Thanks for joining me. Click that handsome face to subscribe and watch some more of my videos. Happy car hunting. See y'all next time.